just living the dream under this southern sky. It's where stories are born and legends never die.
Welcome to Cheaha Legends, Tales of Trails. And I have a couple of, well, I hate to call them special, but they are special in their own way. Of course, I have Eddy the Rock, and I have Grady Sapp, of course, my brother in radio. We kind of do a little hammering back and forth at each other. Eddy, why don't we start with you, and you tell us something about you. Tell us about yourself. You don't have to get real deep into it, you know what I mean?
And not TMI, please.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's good to be on the program with you today, Johnny, JP. And briefly, I've been since '97, been broadcasting. Was privileged to meet Grady in the first radio programs that I was ever a part of. And so we go back a long way. And I had a chance to meet you when I was doing some work with the Alabama, when we created the Outdoor Alabama TV show. But it ended up going to I created the first television shows coming down to Jacksonville State in 1999, going in 2000. And from there we were bringing up the Forest Division. We had the Outdoor Report. Don Walters, we had him on the show, who was the outdoor writer. So it was just an idea. Started off with radio with Grady, several programs. We then took those programs to television with the idea of involving the community and then growing to the state. And it was a lot of fun, and we created the Outdoor Alabama show, as I just said, but we also created the Community Service Network, an opportunity to do community programs. We had the shopping show on TV 24 for almost 17 years. Now we have a program called Out and About, and the reason we did that is because I just never knew where I might be. So it gave me an opportunity wherever I was. Today's technologies, as we said a while ago, I could do a show from anywhere.
Yeah. And
so Grady has always been grounded in the radio and quite good. When you hear his voice, you'll understand why. He's a Robert Goulet of voices. And he also had the technical background.
Male blonde would be more like it, wouldn't it?
That's all, folks.
All right, Grady, why don't you say a little bit? Have you ever talked in one of these microphones before?
I don't know how to talk in a microphone.
Well, okay.
I'm not familiar with them.
Well, what you do is you just turn your head around in circles.
Get as far away from it as
possible.
Yeah. Every time I look at it, I don't know what to think. It is kind of unique.
Yeah,
microphone.
It's a different looking mic.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it cuts out your ambient noise that's in the background and stuff like that.
Oh, that's pretty neat, JP.
First, it's a pleasure to be here shooting this at Western Sizzling. Of course, recently reopened here in Oxford, so we're excited about that.
It's good, too.
Just had a really good meal. Had the buffet, always delicious here at Western Sizzling in Oxford. So, background-wise, I've been in radio off and on since the late 1980s. Went to it full-time in the late 90s. I got my original start down in Clay County with Al Haynes doing high school football. And that evolved into a full-time gig with it in 98, 99, right in there. Went to work with Susquehanna Broadcasting, which owned Alabama 100, the old Alabama 100 here in town, and the Score Sports Talk. Did that for a couple of years, moved on down to Roanoke with Eagle 102.3, and worked there for a couple of years, got out of radio for a year, and then I couldn't stay out and got back into it with Thunder 92.7, and was there for 18 years. And then left there and went to work with Lake Broadcasting, which is John Kennedy-owned stations out of Alex City. And we've got three, which are Kalatcha Country 97.5 in Alex City. We have WFEB in Sylacauga, which is 100.9. And then, of course, the home station here for us in Anniston is 95.1 The Mountain. I've been doing music along with sports for many, many years. Sports, I've pretty well called everything, maybe except hockey and volleyball.
But you would be good at hockey.
Soccer, yeah. Football, basketball, baseball, softball, done all that. A lot of racing coverage. Called races, done reporting in the garages, and of course now we still go down and set up at Talladega and do a couple shows there a year, and we go to Daytona. It's one state away, you know. Daytona.
Yeah, it's just one
You know,
state.
Daytona.
Yeah.
We go there
Yeah, I
and
like
broadcast
that.
live for the 500 week, so which you're part of as well. So that's kind of got into the business by accident. Was working in banking and went to do a pregame show, and then got invited to come down on the sidelines because I knew more about football than Al did. And about halfway through the first quarter, he took off his headset, handed it to me, handed me his mic, said, "Put this on." Said, "When they talk to you, push this button and talk back." And that was my first venture
really?
at live radio, and it all led to this. And now I have made it all the way to your podcast. So I mean,
Boy,
my career's
that's
fulfilled.
big time.
He's at the top now.
You're
Tom.
at the very top.
He's at the top now. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. Well, I appreciate both of y'all being here. Now, I know that you're itching to start telling golf stories about each other. So let's go ahead and get them out of the way now. So go ahead and tell us about trading golf clubs. And
Well,
Grady he changes golf clubs more than I do underwear.
Well, I don't know how often you change underwear, but I will say this. If you want anyone that can give you advice on any club and know what they're talking about, I'm sitting to the king. And
I do
that's
like tinkering with golf clubs. That is my vice, I guess you would say. I love it and love messing with them. Love trying different
He don't
things.
love them two in my truck out there.
No, not those two in your truck.
all I can say, JP, is that with Grady, I just if I pick up a club, I hold it in my hand, I like it. That's it. I couldn't tell you the weight in the shaft.
No.
I couldn't tell you one single thing about that club. I hand it to him, and he's 55 ounces. Oh, this should pull a little to the right. This should do that. And I say, wow, this guy knows his stuff. Now, that's a fact.
I know it.
But it's also a curse.
Yep, it is that.
And I think the curse comes in because when you start knowing so much about the technology of the different clubs, you keep thinking and you're going to find a club that's going to fit you so well that it's just going to be magic, you know. And that's not true for any of us. But Grady has certainly owned, I believe, probably him and Jerry Irwin, a pastor from Harvest, has probably owned more golf clubs or sets of clubs than anyone I know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Grady has had that club, or those set of clubs that were magic. He's had them. And he'd brag on them. About 2 weeks later, he said, I'm going to trade these.
Well, he kept one set a
One
year.
set for a year.
Yeah.
Best set that I've ever played.
And he traded with my golf partner.
Yeah, that was a big mistake.
And my golf partner all of a sudden discovered that magic. Ronnie went, he did. All of a sudden I said, wow, these clubs are incredible. His game changed so fast.
Good set of clubs.
Great set of clubs. So I decided whatever else I buy, whatever brand, I said, I'm going through Grady Sapp.
Yeah, you better.
I mean, he knows his clubs, and that's where I actually came up with my 730s. What I have?
Yeah, 730s.
730s.
Well, I'll tell you a little story on Eddy. I get a lot of stories told on
This
me about
is the
trading.
kind I want to hear.
Yeah, I get stories told on me about
Yeah,
trading
right.
golf clubs. So let me tell you, JP, about the dangers of letting friends hit your golf clubs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're playing around the golf at Cane Creek up here
Yep.
in Anniston. And I have a brand new Callaway Big Bertha driver. Man, it's pretty, and I've enjoyed it. And I think it's actually the one that I traded in the middle of the round for. But anyway, we are on the 5th hole, which is par 5. Eddy wants to hit it. So, I somewhat reluctantly say, okay, because I generally don't, I'm pretty particular about my clubs. So, get on the tee box, and of course, Eddy's lining up here, and I'm standing over here to the right side of Eddy and behind him. And he hits the ball. Well, on the front of that tee box, there's a little cross tie they've got across, surrounded it with cross ties.
Right.
So there's about this much of a cross tie sticking up at the front of it. Well, Eddy hits the drive and hits that cross tie. And when he does, the ball comes straight back at his head. And he ducks, throws the driver up.
Well,
it
I
hits
didn't duck. I was
threw
real
the driver
quick.
up, yeah. It hits the back of the driver. And when it hits the back of the driver, then it ricochets and it goes right by my left ear, narrowly missing me and killing us
Several
both.
hundred yards.
I almost killed us both.
Yes.
It knocked a hole in the back of that driver. And needless to say, Eddie had himself a Callaway driver that was at that point
Yep.
worthless.
Yes.
Worthless.
Yes. But a good story was told.
But it doesn't sound like to me it was worth much when you hit swung it.
Well, of course, it would have been better. It would have got the ball a lot higher. Grady's pretty smart about those kind of things, like he said. He normally will not let you hit his clubs unless he's going to do two things.
Trade with you.
Trade with you.
Yeah.
He'll say, you should try this club.
Yeah.
So I think that's more to the story
Right.
that he said, you should try this club, Eddie.
You know, I've had success in radio, but I missed my calling. I should have been in golf club
He
sales.
should
you
have,
should have.
absolutely.
That
Well,
was
it's not too late.
Yeah, well,
You
it's
know.
getting there.
It's not too late. You can still go on the. You'd be great at it, but yeah, I think there was already probably something wrong with that driver.
No.
And that's probably when he said, "Why don't you try hitting this one?" One year I traded 6 times with Grady. We played a good bit of golf, and it seemed like every couple of weeks I'd trade back, trade another set. We'd go back through. I went through a good bit of it, but I found out this one particular set I liked was Strixons. Why in the world I did this, I don't know. But Grady had, was it Pings or what, TaylorMade, whatever it was. He said, look, I really would like to hit those Strixons. Well, he ended up getting the Strixons, trading them midway through a round of golf. I think it was the Strixons you traded.
Those Pings.
Yeah, I got to say, I traded my Strixons for Pings. Then the Pings came back to you.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, halfway through the round of golf, he wasn't playing with me that day. Now I know why. Typically, we would have been playing a foursome together. But that particular day, he's playing with somebody else. He trades clubs. It gets all the way back to me real quick. And by that time, my game is shot. I'm playing with Wayne Boyd. And I'm thinking, how could he do me this way? How could he do me? I love those clubs. Now they're going, and some guys out there, oh, I love these clubs. I love them. Grady Sapp traded them. He felt like he was the greatest because of the radio personality who had traded these clubs. I said, he hadn't even had them a day. So they weren't that valuable to him.
Well, since we're talking about that day, Eddie, we can also go back to, this was taking place at the Rock down there in Talladega.
Yes.
You and I
Yeah.
swung into the other day. Well, all right, you know how the Rock was a 9-hole course. Well, it was configured that the first hole, you had a tee box here. Well, on the 9th hole went this way, and there was a lake down there in the 9th hole. Well, you kind of got your back to that on the first hole. And after that round ended, Wayne Boyd came up to me, who was playing with Eddie Day, and he said, you ain't gonna believe what Eddie did. And I said, what did he do? He said, I've never in my life seen anybody do this before. I said, what? He said, he hit a drive ball number 1, and somehow or other he managed to hit it back over his shoulder into the water behind him.
Somebody's birthday today.
Yeah.
That's the great part about being at the Sizzling.
I guess he was distraught about those clubs because he
Yeah.
hits the ball and it somehow or other hits it backwards off
Well,
the tee.
what happened, they had the little thing on the front of the tee box.
Oh, you ricocheted another
He
thing.
hit that, and it comes back over our head. And you're right, I was very distraught over the fact that my clubs were gone.
Grady has told me about a few ricochet events he's had too.
I think he's had his share, but you know, since we're talking about those wonderful things, when I was working at the Score, Grady created a golf show called Around the Greens, just so he and I could go play golf and do it during work time. So the first time we ever did it, of course, we sold all these sponsorships. Grady was really good about getting sponsors. So the deal was that we would we'd go and do a 10 o'clock golf show. We had a bread truck. They had to raise the mask up for us to do it. We're at Pine Hill. And so we have these sponsors. So the problem was, as we're finishing up, Grady's with one sponsor, I'm with the next, and he's so competitive. And on the 18th hole, I sink this long putt to beat him.
It was like a stupid putt. Nobody makes that putt.
Yeah, and it falls in.
Except Eddie.
On
And
that
then,
one time.
And then we go walking across there, and I can't say what he said, but it was, congratulations.
Yeah.
So all the way back to the radio station. I mean, you've seen his personality.
Yeah.
He was brewing and stewing and everything else, and I'm thinking, I've got 13 weeks of this.
Yeah.
Because we got 13 weeks of contracts. So that night I went home, prayed about it. I came back, JP, and I realized the best way to resolve this was that Grady and I were going to have to play on the same team. So what I did is I created these unique golf rules or golf things for us to make it fun. And so what we basically did is I made it where if we went into the water, we had the water buffalo, like the Flintstones. They have the lodge. We got a free drop out, no matter where it went in. We also had, put it to you like this, the rules were so great we were hard to beat. So we end up down in Talladega, and we're in a close race. We come down to the close to the last hole. And there's one particular one that we never had to ever use until this match. And one of the things we tell them right up front when we're going over the rules, look, we get to use your ball or our ball on one hole, but we have to salute you, and we'll take your shot or our shot, whichever one is the best that we like. We never had done it till this particular time. Now, we both hit into the woods, but it was by accident. We really didn't mean to. So those guys hit one down, beautiful down the fairway, and said, we've got him, we've got him.
It was tied at that point.
It was tied. They're going to win the hole, win the match. And I said, do y'all remember when we first said that, well, we're taking your ball? And I thought,
you got to go play ours.
Yes, you got to go play ours. I thought these guys were going to come apart until they started laughing. They came on the radio, and what happened, we'd go in that afternoon to the radio show, and more people loved that. But that was the only way I could make it 13 weeks with Grady.
Well, yeah.
Had to be on the same team with him.
Yeah.
And come up with crazy rules.
Listening to y'all talk about that, and y'all been playing together, reminds me a lot of my turkey hunting buddies and the things that we did and would bet and this. I remember one time we were going one afternoon, and me and Sammy bet that whoever got the turkey, the other one had to buy him a 6-pack.
Right, I got you.
And so I did, he didn't. He bought the 6-pack, and then he drank 4 of them.
That sounds like a good buddy.
That's a good friend right
That's a
there.
good buddy right there.
But you're right. Sports buddies mean so much in whatever sport. While we're at the radio station, Grady has a doctor's appointment. Well, he didn't talk to the boss. I know we can say it now. That's Susquehanna. He said, so we didn't tell anybody that he was going to the doctor. So that afternoon, I was carrying the show, and we was talking about hockey. And he loved hockey. I hated hockey. He loved it. And there was one Dominic something that played for the Red Wings, your favorite hockey player. So we came on the radio talking about how he and I was playing hockey in the hall. And we did a body check and knocked him into the wall, and he had to go to the emergency room. People believe that. Yeah. They'd see him out all the time and say, has Eddie hit your kin into the wall? So you understand in your line of work too, doing the radio shows, sometimes you just you can't do it on television or on podcasts, but in radio you can get away with anything.
Well, I don't try to. Everything I say is straight down the line, true, and
It's cloudy.
look at the look on his face.
Is it still raining? We might see a bolt of lightning come out of somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have about as much fun on the radio as y'all do playing golf, sounds like it.
Well, I heard this first part of your name called storytelling.
Yeah.
So, therefore, the straight part of it has to be.
And if you'd have known my granddaddy and my daddy, you would know exactly where I came from, because they were both storytellers. And to say they would embellish it, that might be a little bit of an understatement. Yeah.
I think you certainly are carrying on a family tradition.
Indeed.
And I would have loved to hear some of your stories of going out into the woods and coming up on some critters.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and some other stuff, yeah. Because my grandfather worked with the CCC when they were cutting the roads up Cheaha, and he talks all the time about stuff they would run into and this and that. And
lots of stuff.
Yes, yeah, dangerous stuff.
I was walking out there in the woods one time. I sat down on an old tree and was leaning up against it. It was an old hardwood tree. And I had my head kind of up against it, and I was about to doze off,
Yeah, oh, yes.
And when you got your head up against a tree, and if it's hollow, if something's moving inside it, you're going to hear it. You're going to actually, almost like you feel the vibration. So I was sitting there, and that thing made a little thing, and I looked around, and there was a hole in the side of that tree right there beside me. But I'd look around, I didn't see nothing. I'd go back over, and pretty soon I'd be about to go to sleep again. I'd hear it again. I'd turn around there and look, and finally, there was a good bit of noise and everything, and a thump. And I turned around, there was a skunk right there. I'm talking about close to me to your leg right there. I kind of unuglied that place real quick.
Yeah.
It was trying to move you several different times, and
Well,
finally
it
said,
just-
"This thing is not going to
He was
leave."
just up in that tree, and I think what happened is we startled him, or I did when I walked up there, and he run up that tree.
Right.
And then after I sat down there,
He couldn't
he
get
started
home.
coming back down, and that's what I was hearing.
I'm surprised he wasn't dropping. Well, it wasn't a nut tree. There was just a nut sitting under the tree.
One time, old Jackie Hurd, he was a guy that lived there in Munford, and he's one of our hunting buddies. And he called me one afternoon and said, I got to work in the morning early. And he said, but I scared a bunch of turkeys this evening. I'll tell you where they're at. You can go in there in the morning. I said, yeah, man, I'll go in there. So he told me. So I walked down that old road, and I got in there. I didn't want to go too far. I didn't want to scare them. So I just eased up on the side of the bank. There's a big pine tree. I just sat down there by that tree. And I'm sitting there. And I kept hearing something hit the ground. Like it's almost like I had sand in my hand, and that little grains of sand was hitting the leaves and stuff. And I couldn't figure out what in the world that was. And I was looking. I was kind of probably worried about it being a snake crawling across the leaves or something.
I'm sure I would have been that worried about that.
Well, I'm sitting there, and about that time, right beside me, I look down there, and it's this big old pile of chicken mess, turkey mess, hit the ground. And I said, I don't mind what. And I looked up there, and there sat this big old turkey sitting right there on the limb.
Wow.
And then I got to looking, and it was all over the ground where I was sitting, and I had it all over my pants and everything.
Now
That's pretty bad.
that's bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
A turkey.
The words I've heard before, dang brother, I don't know if I'd tell that.
That's a turkey just pooping on you. Saying, "Hey, well, did you shoot it?"
Well, I didn't right then, and
Yeah.
that was the strange thing about it, because I really couldn't tell what it was,
Right.
because it hadn't got daylight good.
Right.
And it was sitting up there on that limb, and directly that thing flew off, flew slap across that watershed lake. And when it flew off, I could see his old beard hanging down. I said, dang, that was a big old gobbler. Well, he flew over there and hit on the ground, hit in a tree. I saw him, the tree he landed in, but it was way over there. And I just sat there. I called a little bit, and I sat there. I moved a little bit, got out of the bombed area.
Yeah.
And I heard that turkey over there gobble one time. And next thing I know, he flew right back over there and lit right below me, and I got him 5-10 minutes later.
Turkeys are not the smartest animals in the world,
Well,
obviously.
we're chasing something out there that's got the brain about the size of a pinto bean. And they'll fool us every time. Just
Yeah, I
about.
keep hearing that. How they're very
But
adaptive.
enough about that.
No,
This
I
is
love
about
that
y'all,
story.
and
Oh no, I
know
like
y'all
that
got
story.
a couple more stories. We're probably getting pretty close to our time. I like to stay around 20 or 25
Yeah.
minutes.
I got another one to share with you about Eddie here. Now, he told you about that putt that he made.
Yeah,
I told you
yeah.
he wouldn't make it at 1 in 100 times. Well, a hole-in-one is one of the rarest feats in golf. If you make a
Yeah.
hole-in-one, most of the time that's a bit of luck and a good shot followed by some luck. Well, sometimes it's an awful shot followed by a lot of luck. So we're playing Indian Oaks. Number 10 was a par 3 out there. I had hit first. I hit a beautiful shot, about 5 feet for birdie. Good shot. And so Eddie gets up. Well, at Indian Oaks, the cart path ran down the right side of the fairway, and then on the right side were houses. And this one particular house sits up on a hill above it with a bunch of pines, a little pine thicket right there. Eddie hits it about 40 yards
back
off.
up.
He hits.
Part of that story was I was trying to decide which club to hit,
Well,
and you said you've been hitting the 7-iron really good today. You should try to hit that one.
Well, he didn't hit it really good that time. He hits it dead right, about 40 yards off line. Well, the dang thing hits a tree, kicks it out, it rolls down the bank, rolls up on the green, and has to roll all the way across the green into the front left corner. And dang, if it don't roll in and go in, he makes a hole in one.
And you did with a 7-iron?
Yep.
From the tee box?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a par 3.
Yeah.
So you can do it with it. It's what you're going to be hitting as an iron.
Yeah, we looked at each other and we was like kids dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a
They
hole in
don't-
one. And then it became ugly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to me, it's
yeah,
still
I bet it did.
It was a beautiful shot though to
Yeah.
me. But he was also he was with me the second hole in one I got. That was not ugly.
No, that one was
That
pretty.
hit
I
one
bounced
and fell in
two
the
of
hole.
them that he's made. Yeah,
Yeah.
he hit a shot
Hit
at
three.
Hill on number 3 and
Yeah.
never left the pin. Popped
On
once
May
and
the
dropped.
1st, May Day.
Yeah.
Well, how many have you witnessed Grady making? Oh, really? That's 0
Zero.
But
reading that?
I've been there when they were real close.
Yeah.
Just haven't made one yet.
Just
Never
haven't
had
had
one. Never had one.
But this year it's gonna be different.
Is it got something to do with that loft?
I think it's
It
got a
has
lot.
to do
I
with
think it's
the
got. I think it's got a lot to do with the club, just because you know what's going to happen if when he gets that hole in one. We're gonna say it. When you get your hole in one, you've got to play at least a year with those set of clubs, because if they've given you a hole in one,
Yeah.
you should
owe
be
it to 'em.
justified. You owe it
You
to
do
them.
owe it to 'em.
I mean, you do owe it to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the
What
problem.
if I get that hole in one and I actually hit one of your clubs? with it?
Well, it's just one of them deals. It looks like we'll be making another trade. But you owe it to it.
Owe it to it. I
Yeah.
agree. If I
Now,
ever
there's-
get one, I will have
Now,
to hang on to
JP,
those
there's
clubs.
one thing in golf that I don't understand. And that is the guy who gets the hole in one has to buy drinks for the guys with him.
Right?
That doesn't make any sense to me. It should be the other way around.
Yeah, it should be.
The guys should be buying drinks for the
That's
guy
right.
who gets the hole in
If I
one.
make a hole in one, are you going to buy me a drink, JP?
Yeah.
Uh,
Milk,
Let me think
maybe.
about that a minute. Now,
But he has to be on the course.
Wow,
So
that shouldn't
if
have
I
anything
was
to do
playing with you, I would.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes, exactly, and that's the one thing for any of the golfers out there. I don't know. That should be one of the things you should agree at your club. If anybody gets in hole in one, and I'm on the course that day, get yourself a drink, a beverage, and put it on my tab. That's just something it should be. You know,
I agree with you.
You know, that's a really good
So
thing.
what you're saying right now is Grady and all your other partners owe you 2 each.
At least.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
2. You're
2.
right.
2
That's
each.
correct.
Yeah.
But
I
you know,
agree.
getting 2 drinks out of Grady would be like, I don't know, it'd be kind of tough.
Could be difficult.
It
Yeah.
could be very difficult.
Yeah, you got a big 4-wheel drive truck with a winch on it, you might could pull it out.
Hey, it might. I tell you, when Grady ever gets set in something, it's very difficult to persuade him to change his mind, except clubs.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. You don't have any trouble.
Weak-minded on clubs.
Well, I can almost tell you this afternoon, if we were to go out, JP, and the rain has settled down, when we go out,
Yeah.
if all of a sudden I start hitting those tricks on, because he's going to say, hey, look, you should try the 9-iron. I was trying his clubs the other day, and I liked it. I hit 2 balls. I liked the shots. Next thing I know, he's already got them in somebody else's hands, right in front of me, just swapped them.
But we didn't trade.
They didn't trade. They took me out of getting the opportunity to finish playing with them.
You know, Eddie, I'm not real sure I'd play with them anymore. I mean, they're just
Well-
not treating you right.
There's just one thing about it going into it. You know that if anything's for sale, he's going to ask you to ride with him that day.
Uh-huh.
That's when you know. And here's the kicker. He will actually pick you up at your car. And then here's the bigger kicker. He'll drop you off. Any other time, you got to take him back to his vehicle, pick him up, drop him off. But when he's ready to trade, he becomes a different guy.
person. Yeah.
But I respect that.
It's all part of the sale. It's all part of the
I
sale.
respect that, G, because I knew the other day when he said, hey, you can ride with me. Pick me up at the car. I said, hold on, something is amiss here.
Something's up.
And then I realized he started throwing that word out I like, strict
It
son.
could be one of those 2 things. It could either be clubs involved, or there could be that there's just somebody there that I don't want to ride with, so I need to get the seat occupied.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
both of those instances. That
Yeah, but where does that put you when he doesn't do that
well,
to you? You know?
kick to the curb.
Yeah, what if he's over
Well,
picking old player up
Yeah.
or brother
Oh
or
yeah.
something?
When he picks up player, I understand, because you're not going to find a better guy than player. I mean, yes, Steve's a great guy, and Grady has to do that from time to time because Steve does so much for Grady that he has
He
a
has
way
to,
to pay it back. I've learned to do very little for Grady because that way he doesn't have to owe me, and I don't have to owe him. So we just have this common theme together: is that when we see each other, we enjoy a great round of golf, and then we try our best not to tell the truth about everything that we saw.
Yeah, you don't want to tell the truth.
No,
Not about golf.
no. If you ever do that, then there'll be a lot of guys who won't play with you.
Well, that's great, and I appreciate y'all coming and being on, and we'll.
I love this. Is this
Yeah.
your brand? The camp
Well, it
collars?
used to. This is
Okay.
mine that's on this one.
Oh, okay.
Cheaha Legends.
That's neat.
And let's make a pact between us, and let's do this again in a few weeks.
Absolutely. And we'll come back here because I love having you here at the Western Sizzling.
Yeah. We
appreciate
them for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kenny Phillips does a great job. Dawn. And so we certainly appreciate you folks out there for tuning in. I know we're on your podcast, but we'll be sharing this on my channel.
I was going to say, this is his
Yeah,
podcast, so
yeah.
you need to let him close it out.
Yeah, I was going to let him close.
No,
I was closing it out on my
let him
side.
close it out. I close it out enough of them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we thank you for joining us today. It's always a privilege. God bless you. Until we see each other again, just know that you're loved. Tell 3 people that you love them. You'll make 4 people happy,
That's right, especially yourself.
especially yourself.
I do appreciate y'all coming, and we'll
for
get
having
together
us.
and do this again.
Yes, sir.
Real quick.
Yes,
All
sir.
right?
Real quick.
To Munford our home and all its glory on display, and to the Cheaha legends that'll never fade away.